Now we come to Sherlock Holmes. Conan Doyle was the author of Sherlock Holmes, although a detective story had already been written sometime before by Edgar Allan Poe. Sherlock Holmes starred Basil Rathbone in two big 20th century Fox films, The Hound of the Baskervilles and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Then, during the Second War, Rathbone signed a contract with Universal. They made a series of modern Sherlock Holmes. He was fighting the Nazis and so on and so forth. Bulldog Drummond, another famous detective, books written in 1910, were played, the character was played by Richard Johnson in the 60s. Prior to that, in the 1930s, Ronald Colman was Bulldog Drummond. But Richard Johnson was not called Bulldog, too nationalistic. He was in two very good films, and he was described by someone I knew as a high-class Sean Connery. In 1948, Winston Churchill came to the Congress and made the memorable speech about an iron curtain that's fallen across Europe. That gave birth to what became the Cold War, and that set the pattern for James Bond. So for much of the time he was fighting the Soviets, but not really the Soviets. It was a secret Spectre plot that was always plotting to take over the world. The creator of James Bond, Ian Fleming, worked in the Secret Service during the Second War, and before that he was actually in Archangel in the trials of the White Russians back in, this would be 1920. The man who established the Secret Service for the British, the first Secret Service ever organized in the 1600s, was John Dee, who was the astrologer for Queen Elizabeth I. And his secret code name was 007. John Dee, with a friend of his who was a psychic, traveled to the Roman Colosseum in the 1600s, and apparently the two of them stood at night and conjured up a flight of very strange-looking angelic forms that actually had something like bats' wings. They were very dark, and they were circling around the Colosseum. So history tells us. There is a famous engraving of that very scene, and he is the man who established the first Secret Service. The occult was very much employed within the Secret Service. During the war, Winston Churchill had astrologers trying to figure out something about Hitler. Hitler had his own astrologers trying to figure out the reverse. So the CIA was trained by the Nazis and MI6, British Secret Service. And the story is, true or not, that a lot of occultism is connected with the CIA. I cannot verify that. Another detective, on a somewhat lower level, kind of civil servant type, was Harry Palmer. Michael Caine was the star. Press File, Funeral in Berlin, and $1 Billion Brain, the first major film directed by Ken Russell with stupendous visuals. Len Deaton was actually the associate producer on a film I worked on, Oh, What a Lovely War, Richard Attenborough's first film as director. And Len had to put his money in something because he was being taxed 90% by the government. He was very, very rich. He really didn't know about filmmaking, but he came and approved one or two sets and then disappeared back to the place where he was living.